what do you make of the entire look? Nico tried his, don't say tried his best. He seemed very staunch in defending the trade. He said if I had to do it all over again, I would still do it. Rick Welts, who was previously the Golden State Warriors CEO during the start of their run, he compared the Luka trade to the Monte Ellis trade, which I'm guessing did not go over very well with a lot of Dallas Mavericks fans, considering I've heard from a lot of Mavericks fans who said, I'd rather lose every game with Luka than win a championship without him. How do you see all of this playing out? Or what was your reaction? Not all this playing out, because it's already played out. But how do you react to what Nico Harrison said or didn't say in his long-awaited session with the media?
Listen, I don't claim to be a PR expert. And I know sometimes our friends who work in team PR get overruled and get essentially told to do things. I just don't understand when you're dealing with this blank storm that they are dealing with in Dallas and are trying to put out fires, why you would create another fire that overtakes the whole story. For a day, nobody cared about what was said or what wasn't said. It was the fact that you were trying to hide something by not being on camera and not having it recorded. What was the thinking there? I don't understand. Like that became the story instead of the good you were trying to do in your community by bridging some conversations. The second part of it, which was mind-boggling to me, was the timing. I get the reporting that's out there that ownership essentially demanded this. That's what ESPN is reporting.
Right.
But why do it the day before your play-in game when it kind of sounded like an exit interview before your season's over? And now, because your team won and won so convincingly, you have an opportunity to actually make the playoffs.
Right.
So the timing of it and how it was executed, I didn't understand. And then it felt as if Nico was uncomfortable with some of the questions that I wouldn't say were softball. Like some of the questions I heard that were asked were really like they were just good questions. They were questions that should have been asked.
Right.
And he didn't seem prepared for it by having these stock answers of defense wins championships. The questions about not having any assets to make yourself better when you just had let go of the guy who took you to the NBA Finals was not answered. And I'm not suggesting that you have to go and give the blueprint of behind the scenes of everything that you're trying to do, but I think your fan base is owed a bit of confidence of this is why we did it and here's the plan, even in generalities moving forward.
There was a lack of transparency throughout this entire thing. And when you make a trade like that, clearly they did not expect the blowback. There was a miscalculation on how important Luka was to Dallas and that Dallas Mavericks fan base. Luka clearly meant more than Nico Harrison thought he did. There's that. The question of what they got back in the trade is always going to stick in the craw of a lot of people, to which I see both sides of, right? If you tell Luka that you're trading him, he's going to gerrymander the deal to where you're not going to get the absolute best return because he's going to say, I'm not going anywhere but Team X. So Team X has no reason to offer you the absolute best package of players and draft picks, etc. But when you traded them to the Lakers, you should have got more than just Anthony Davis. And I'm saying just Anthony Davis, recognizing that Anthony Davis is a generational basketball player. You've got to come away with draft capital or at least Austin Reeves and find some way to make the money work to bring in Austin Reeves with Luka Doncic, with that deal. Granted, knowing you had Kyrie Irving, knowing you had Klay Thompson, I understood all of that, but you had to come away with more. And I think that's always going to stick in the craw of the people who are criticizing Nico is that, okay, trading him is one thing. What you traded him for, who you traded him to is going to stick, and you're not around to justify to sell this. If you're going to make a bad deal, you better be able to talk about it and explain it to people in a way that's digestible. I've yet to hear Nico stand with his back straight and say, this is why we made this deal. If you don't like it, that's fine. But I'm going to show you that we have a present and a future without him that says we are a contender. And he hasn't yet said that.
Which, listen, I'm sure you've had conversations with Nico Harrison. He is as polished of a businessman as there is out there.
Yes.
He is as professional and sophisticated and dynamic as there is out there.
Yes.
Which is why all of this to me smells a little fishy. It did from day one and it continues to. The fact
now, what are you saying? Now, what are you saying when you say this smells fishy? Are you saying
I think
fishy from the standpoint of ownership?
I don't know. I have my guesses. I have my assumptions. I don't have any reporting to do. But the fact that Nico Harrison can't put together in a press conference and state clearly his thoughts more than cliches that are stock answers leads me to believe that there's either something that he does not want to share or something he can't share.
Well, Jared, there's always something you can't share in these spots. You can't tell everything. And we all know.
And listen, we could throw it out there. Whether it was a demand from ownership, whether it was we were not going to be able to pay the bill.
Right.
Either not able to or didn't want to.
Or whether we're not sure that Luka Doncic's body is going to hold up for the long term based off of what we've seen from him.
And the other part of it too is that, like, you know, there's a fraction of us, and I'm in this category, where like it's not just win or nothing. I think you know, you grow up rooting for a team, and there's a certain standard that you want from your team. You know, there are certain cities, I'll say, like take your city in Detroit, right? Like, people in Detroit don't want to just win a championship. They want to win it a certain way. They want certain toughness. They want certain grit to their teams. We could take that to culturally as well and take it as the moral value of the type of people you want in. And again, this is not to indict Luka on anything. It's just the ideas we're having to come up with because we're not being told any information. Was there something about Luka, if it wasn't the financials, which make the most sense, was it something that they just weren't comfortable, win, lose, or draw, having him be a part of the organization moving forward? And I wonder, I don't know if it's accepted. I don't know if it's accepted by the Dallas community, if that's the answer, but I wonder if if you're able to understand it. You don't, there's a difference between understanding something and agreeing with you. You don't have to agree with what we're saying, but could you understand it if you're just like, listen, this guy was untenable. He was doing X, Y, and Z off the court. He was doing X, Y, and Z to cause us problems in the film room, in the locker room, whatever it may be. If those were the cases, I'm not expecting them to come out and just do a tell-all and crap on the guy. They did certainly enough of that behind the scenes. But if that's the case, maybe people can relate to it and say, listen, we've all worked in an office where there's just some guy who maybe is the best salesperson we have, but he's a total whatever and makes the rest of us worse. And we don't want, no matter how much revenue he's bringing in, we don't want him part of our sales force anymore.
It could be a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
And like you said, being able to articulate it, being able to talk about it, being able to sell it. This is the big thing. You got to be able to sell this to your stakeholders. And your stakeholders are the fans of the Dallas Mavericks who show up and fill that arena every night, who chanted "Fire Nico" at an uncommonly loud volume 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whenever the hell it was when I was in Dallas. Like, that felt uncomfortable being there. So yeah, it's just weird. And yeah, this story was never going to end. The heartbreak there, the tentacles will go on for a long time.